Everything you watch, read, or listen to is manipulating your energy. You're being lied to about the world you live in. You're being lied to about your history. You're being lied to about who you really are. Question everything.
When I was doing the architecture sound project, that was when I was living in London and I was studying at St. Martin's. So probably when I was 14, I started studying Reiki. So you kind of connect to do the healing, to activate healing, you make geometric patterns while you're making sounds, and that activates healing. So I think having that in the back of my psyche since I was like 14 years old, that influenced my artwork in creating geometric patterns from sound vibrations. And now I kind of see everything as vibration and how the choices that we make in every day kind of create a new geometry around us, and how our outer reality is always a reflection of our inner reality. Anything that's created with sacred geometric ratios, whether it's sound or an art piece or a building, I think when we subconsciously we experience that harmony because our whole body is made out of that harmony. So we resonate with it. So I guess any building created with those proportions, any artwork, any music created with that proportions deeply resonates with us in a way that we kind of can't explain with words.
What made you decide to start studying the relationship between sound and form?
I discovered a tribe in the Amazon called the Shipibo tribe, and they are they basically translate songs that they create into colorful geometric tapestries. And once I discovered them, I knew I had to go and visit them, and ended up doing a month of ayahuasca with them and realizing how the songs that they translate into patterns are songs that they that are given to them by plants that they diet. So yeah, it really helped me understand how nature is telepathic, just living there, and how all consciousness is continuously communicating, whether consciously or unconsciously, and how the Shipibo were able to vibrationally connect with plants and then translate those into these kind of beautiful, colorful geometric tapestries.
Is that what you meant on your website? I read that you said that all beings are continuously broadcasting vibrations like a radio signal and absorbing these vibrations around them, and that all of nature was in constant telepathic communication.
That's what
Is
I
that the same
believe.
thing you were
Yeah.
saying just now?
Yeah. I think we're all kind of have those abilities, but we just haven't been tapped into them, or we've been veered away from them.
What is it that you think is keeping us from that? Is there a purpose to that?
Well, I think there's, the global elite or whatever you want to call it, like, our water is contaminated, our atmosphere is contaminated. We're in a frequency controlled society because those kind of setups need to be put in place to kind of minimize us waking up or minimize our intuitive abilities. Like if I give up coffee and sugar and, lots of different things, if we all did that for like 3 months, our intuition would be like, whoa. So it's really not social to be that, healthy, or it's not kind of easy to live like that and kind of socialize and get on with.
So, but you would agree that there's like a global elite that's kind of pulling the strings and maybe putting stuff in our food and maybe poison us our ears with the certain kinds of music and things like that to prevent us from experiencing higher versions of ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, but that only motivates me to kind of want to shine my light brighter. Um, I guess, um, I guess it's kind of like black magic and then light work. It's like kind of polar opposites. So in some ways they work in similar ways, but if um if we live in a free will universe, then um and we remember our sovereignty and we remember who we really are, then it's easy to disconnect connections with entities or overlords or energetic cords between other people, because we stand in our sovereignty and we remember who we really are, like that we're extensions of source energy. And then we stand in that sovereignty, and then we're able to cut those ties. So light work, or the light, is all about revealing information, whereas the dark is all about concealing information and usurping people's free will. Whereas light work is more about um, empowering people to step into their sovereignty and realize that they have that ability to choose what energies they interact with or not. So with my light work practice, like I teach psychic protection tools. So having tools around me so that tools that are constantly absorbing any negativity coming towards me, any negativity coming out of me. And so it's like the darkness is important too, because if we were just a light on the sun, how would we experience ourselves as light? We'd know ourselves as light, but we'd never be able to experience ourselves. And so the darkness defines the light. And so when we see it from that viewpoint, there's an ability to be fearless about saying no to the darkness, or having discernment about where your boundaries lie, because you remember who you really are. If you know what I mean. For me, now doing these kind of psychic protection tools is a non-negotiable. If I don't do them for a few days, like, my energy feels out of alignment, and it's easier for people to kind of cord into me or affect me. So a lot of people coming to me for light work sessions, they might have past lives as a witch, or, wise women, midwives that were burnt at the stake. They have vowed to themselves through those kind of lifetimes that they would never use their intuitive or healing abilities, for fear of their life or the lives of those that they love. So clearing all these kind of timelines so that we could uh, clear the contracts and agreements that are preventing us from stepping fully into our essence and our light. So I work with a higher council of light beings for my light work practice, and we're angels, archangels, the Elohim, ascended masters. So they're holding sacred space for me and my clients. And really, I'm just kind of a messenger, and I'm just saying what their higher self is asking me to reveal to them. Usually, they're the most important hidden blocks that are holding them back from their own divine alignment, whether that's a past life or a belief or a entity attachment that's keeping them in a looped kind of behavior pattern. Um, but yeah, it's like learning these tools. It's like feeling invincible, whether it's the light or the dark, because it's like remembering our sovereignty and how to emit our frequency instead of absorb everything around us. And having that switch makes it feel safe to navigate the darkness, because when you trust the vibration that you're offering in each moment, when you're tuned in to who you really are, then you're not a match to that anyway. So instead of worrying about outside of yourself, you can just trust your vibration that you're offering in each moment, that that's lining you up with similar energies.
How do you know? How do you discern if you're not talking or communicating with like bad entities, if you will?
So I guess I only want to connect with, so I call in every day, I call in my spiritual guides of divine light who love me unconditionally to assist me. And I just like list off, I'm like, this. There you go. Because they respect for me, this is my perception. I think they respect our free will so much. And unless we actually say, I give you my full permission to my spiritual guides of only divine light who love me unconditionally, and then that kind of creates the boundary that only those energies can come forth. And then, yeah, setting up sacred space around me and my sessions, then I feel safe in that.
Why do you think that they don't show themselves to us as humans? Like if the goal is to help all humans elevate their vibration, right? How come they're not always present, just guiding everybody and just keeping us away from that darkness?
Well, I think everyone comes in with at least one kind of spirit guide that's with them all the time. Uh, yeah, I guess it's like being receptive to them. So maybe like 15 years ago, I would have been like, oh, angels, whatever. But once you start calling them in, you started experiencing them. So um, you start to kind of get a feel for the different frequencies of them. So Archangel Gabriel is for communication. It's like when you're calling them in, you can feel their presence, or you're asking them for specific, like if I'm finding it hard to write a difficult email, I'll ask Archangel Gabriel to assist me and just like trust and then flow. Because your perception designs your experience, like in quantum physics with the what is it, the double slit, or the, what is it called, the observer effect. When you have like a sheet of paper with a light source shining onto the sheet of paper with two slits, it creates like a cloud of atoms onto the wall. As soon as you measure the light going through the two slits, then it comes up as two slits on the wall. So it's basically shows how our perception our perception of reality causes what we see to turn up, so we can actually reverse all of that and figure out, what do I want to perceive? How can I design my perception? We all have the ability to design our perception, and so design the reality that kind of greets us. It's like you smile at the world and the world smiles at you. But really, it's all about within us. Like our outer reality is a reflection of within.
I heard you mention earlier that you believe in source. I need to understand, I guess, where you're coming from in terms of the origination of the source light, I guess you could say.
I guess it's like going back to that like light on the sun analogy. Like if all there is light, then light can never experience itself. So if the light is God or source or whatever you want to call it, then that light source had to split into individual fragments or whatever, so that we could remember that we are an extension of source energy or consciousness or God or vibration, that consciousness needed to be separated so it can look back on the whole and recognize and remember who we really are. So I think it's just consciousness ever kind of, well, God or source or consciousness has to experience itself through us, you know? And then when we step into remembering who we really are, that we are an extension of source energy, and line up with that vibrationally, then we have infinite power to create. And I think the global elite don't want us to realize that, but I think it's already inevitable. It's already happening.
In Genesis 1:3, God said, "Let there be light." God said, "Let there be a firmament." God said, "Let the land produce vegetation." God said, "Let the water teem with living spirits," and things like that. He said all of this, so we are that vibration. That my thought process on this, and I just want to go over this a little bit. I've talked about this in other episodes, but essentially, when we currently speak words, when we say, plosive consonants like P and T, it creates bursts of air that can form these little tiny air vortices, if you will. And when we say frictives like S and F, it involves a continuous airflow, right? Which can produce this spiraling turbulence in the air. Resonant sounds like or like M and N, like create these standing waves, right? So there's science that backs up the fact that sound creates vortices. These vortices create these magnetic fields. These magnetic fields attract matter, right? So everything we say can materialize. Everything we think can materialize. Did you have that similar thought about sound when you were doing the study of the architecture of sound, like how it forms things, like it builds things?
Yeah, I actually have this book here. This is what inspired me. It's The Alchemy of Nine Dimensions by Barbara Hanclau. And she describes different dimensions. I probably explained that on the Topher show, but basically, um, yeah, any sound can create that form. But I think what's more powerful, or when you connect with your true creative power, is the intention behind the sound, the beingness while creating the sound. So even though it could be the same sound, the intention behind the sound could be different for the light or for the dark. Do you know what I mean?
I see. Yeah, of
And
course.
so that kind of ties in with from The Alchemy of Nine Dimensions. She describes the dimensions that we can experience as humans. I mean, on this planet. So the first dimension is the iron crystal core at the center of the earth that creates all the gravity. And then the distance between the iron core to the earth's crust is the telluric realm, the 2D, the fairies, the elementals, the crystals, the rocks. And now we're on 3D space and time. And then there's the fourth dimension, which is kind of like where I feel like there's like kind of astral war going on in the fourth dimension, because there's been a frequency fence in some way for us to experience the other dimensions and for the other dimensions to come in. So fifth dimension would be like unconditional love, sixth dimension, sacred geometry, seventh dimension, sound, eighth dimension, the intention behind the sound. So we're working with all these at the same time. So yeah, it's not just about sound, it's just the beingness. It's like what I'm always speaking about in my sessions is that we're all extensions of source energy. And like when we think of a memory that makes us feel like elated or like the most uplifted or the most tuned in, tapped in that we've ever felt in our life, we can use that memory to retune our inner dial, our frequency dial within us to align with that frequency of upliftment. And we can actually give those kind of feelings to ourselves as often as we like, thereby retuning our frequency. So when we think thoughts that ring true with who we really are, then we're lined up with source. When we think thoughts that aren't true, that are false, that make us feel upset, we have our emotional guidance system that shows us that we're disconnected now from source, because we're basically believing these lies that we're telling ourselves. So for me, the easiest way to flip into source is to think about a memory that brings me to a feeling of like elation or connection. And then living from that place, then I start to generate my own radio signal that I can broadcast out. And then I can trust that whatever comes towards me lines up with that, you know?
Yeah, no, I definitely experience that every day. And I think people who listen to the show probably experience the same thing. Um, yeah, I actually look at when we were talking, you were talking about how we need the darkness almost to exist. I kind of have this theory on that, where that they are in the antimatter. And if you've seen the show Stranger Things, it would be the upside down, right? So it's like, if we are matter, then they are antimatter. And it's just like, if you look at obviously you have trampolines in Ireland, right? So when you look at a trampoline, if you're looking at it on the surface, it looks flat. But if you go and stick your fist up and push up, it looks like a mountain, right? And that's kind of how I see, like, we have to exist from the antimatter as well. So it would be like a can. A can is not just empty. There is, in the antimatter world, there is matter filling that can, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So everything that's not light and everything that's not vibrating into physical form, into matter, is antimatter. And so we need them, the bad, if you will, in order to, or we use them, I guess you could say, to create us, right? For us to exist. And I feel like there are negative entities that don't like that, obviously, and they want to be in this physical world that we live in. And that was kind of why I was asking the question earlier about, like, how do you know if they're not, if they're good or bad that you're communicating with? Because I do feel like they would be the ones to manipulate people and to say, I'm your mom, or your grandma or somebody like that, and to use that against you in order to achieve whatever it is goal that they want to achieve, if you will.
Then you'd be a perfect vibrational match to that kind of interaction. So that's why all you control is the vibration you're offering within. And when you're trusting that you're lined up, tuned in with source, you're remembering who you are. You don't have to worry about that.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense.
Or it's like in that situation, that person and the entity are matched like Velcro. But when you take off your side of the Velcro, that entity can't even stick on anymore, because you're commanding from your being that your sacred space around you, which is what I teach on my program. And me, that just makes me feel invincible. Like, the more I awaken and the more bright I become, like, it's very clear to me that there's entities on certain people, around me, that are trying to pull me down. And it's not so much that person, but it's like, now that I have these psychic protection tools, I'm like, finally, I feel invincible, because I feel like we all need to learn how to navigate the light and the dark, so that we're not, uh, getting our energy siphoned off unintentionally.
I definitely agree. When I was talking about those little vortices that you speak, right? I feel like that we have this magnetic field around us. Our bodies produce this bioelectric field, this energy field around us. And I feel like when you speak certain things, if you're a negative person and you have negative thoughts coming from you, it's going to get kind of trapped into this little bubble around you, if you will. And then I also think that if you speak certain words, like I said, those vibrations come out and they kind of get stuck in your orbit. And so if you have negative thoughts, if you say negative things, you're going to create a negative magnetic field. And so you're going to attract negative things. So yeah, I totally get what you're saying. That makes a lot of sense. Did you learn how to, where did all this come from for you? Because for me, it was like an awakening. It was like, oh, like I remember looking up at the sun and I saw light radiating from it, and I went, oh, God is light. That makes total sense. So for me, it was like an awakening, like an epiphany almost. And I was like, okay, I get it now. It makes sense. And then from that point on, that's whenever positive things started happening to me, getting better jobs. And, it was like, I started getting all these synchronicities, and it was like the Holy Spirit was, yes, this is it. This is your path. And once you vibrationally line up with that, then yes, positive things start coming. You get better jobs, you get better houses, you get better relationships, you get better friends and all this other stuff. So yeah, I'm totally on board with that. But yeah, for me, it was an epiphany. Did it come to you that way? Like, what was the precursor to studying cymatics in cathedrals? What was your awakening point, I guess, is the best question to ask.
My awakening point. I remember having there's like a couple of like random memories when I was a child when I'm just sitting down, probably like looking at the light or something like that, and having like a big, oh my God, epiphany, but like not being able to tell anyone, not knowing how to relate it to anyone. So a lot of my earlier years is just like keeping that to myself because I didn't know who to speak about it with. So yeah, my dad was really, really spiritual growing up and used to test my psychic abilities going into school. When's the next car coming, all this kind of stuff. And we had a really, really, spectacular kind of conversations about dimensions and life on other planets and the meaning of, how the big pyramids were built, like probably from like 9 to 12, and he died when I was 13. So I think, the summer before he died, I read Conversations with God, which I know is a bit cheesy, but the essence of what it talks about is, bang on. And I remember reading that with him and explaining all these different things. So from that point, I had an awareness or a way of communicating about all those kind of experiences. And then I guess different points in my life punctuated further expansions and continuing to like learn and grow, obviously.
So that trip to Peru was did you say that was the point that you decided that you wanted to study cymatics and the relationship between sound and form?
She went there after I did the architecture sound project. So I was living in London, and I've always had a really peculiar connection with the Seven Sisters star system. So I've always been able to point it out in the sky, the night sky, since I was very, very young. And probably when I was around 22, I started reading books by Barbara Marciniak. And she channels Pleiadian information. So when I think I was 22 and I picked up one of my dad's books that I hadn't read before, and he said it brought together all the books that he was reading. And then when I read that one, it spoke about sound and how sound takes you to a place where your intellect cannot. And I just really felt such a strong resonance that we have no idea how powerful sound is. And that kind of led me to explore that in my master's in St. Martin's. And I ended up living in Seven Sisters in London during that time when I was doing the architecture of sound project. And I was getting crazy dreams with like geometric kind of lights, and I felt like I was getting activated. And that's when I started practicing Pleiadian light work. And calling in chambers of light and making invocations with spirits. So calling in all my spiritual guides of divine light, great spirit of divine light, let me be employed by you, put me to work and show me what I can do. Because I knew that there was something about sound and vibration and form. And it was like this passion was leading me to research. And then every day I was calling in, my spiritual guides to collaborate with me and show me the way. So when you look at this architecture sound project, it looks like, oh, wow, that perfectly makes sense. But it was probably only up until 2 weeks before I had to pull the whole project together that it suddenly lined up and made sense. So all I was doing was following my intuition and whatever uh, kind of like Ariadne in the Greek myth, following that thread out of the labyrinth. It's like when anyone can kind of, remember who they are and invoke, great spirit of the light to show them their path. And then it's the willingness and the trust that it's going to be revealed to you, but you have to start searching for it. And then as things pop up and you can feel that resonance with that feeling of the passion, then they all start lining up. And then once you bring it all together, you're like, whoa, that's kind of how my architecture and sound project worked. So it wasn't a conscious development, but it was kind of a synchronistic kind of um, path that I was following.
Can you explain the device you used to record the cymatics and explain the whole process if you don't mind? Because I have read the study, but for those who are listening, they might not know.
So cymatics is the science that studies the geometric patterns created by sound vibrations. And I used churches because they were a metaphor for the wider form, because they were designed, especially these churches that I recorded, were designed with sacred geometry. So the proportion between your feet and your belly button to the top of your head is basically the geometric code that's in all of nature. So because churches are built with this ratio, I wanted to record them. And basically, I recorded the resonant frequencies of the churches. I'll explain how I did that. And then I had a cymatic device that allowed me to play these frequencies through a speaker filled with water. And the frequencies created troughs and flows in the water's edges as it was vibrating with the sound. So it's taking fast pictures of the geometric patterns on the water surface. And then discovered that these patterns were like 5-pointed stars within pentagons or rose window type patterns. And then I carved those patterns back onto the stone that the churches were built from. So architecture is frozen music, and music is liquid architecture. So I recorded the resonant frequency using a technique by Alvin Lucier in the 1970s from a piece he does called "I'm Sitting in a Room." So anyone can do this. You just record the silence. I wasn't even in the churches because I felt like my vibration would affect it. So all the churches were empty. So I recorded the space for about 6 minutes and then got that recording and played it back into the space while we were recording it. Got that recording, played it into the space while we were recording it again. Repeated that loop about 5 or 6, depending on the size of the church. And yeah, in some of these churches, the resonant frequency, once I was playing it through, was actually rattling the glass in the churches. So I was literally running across the churches to turn off the speaker. But I was living in a flat in Seven Sisters with windows all over my whole bedroom. And when I did that same process in my bedroom, it was a really high frequency noise because of all the glass. And then in the churches, it's built with Portland stone. So the sound was like really deep sound. And then the cymatic device, I think it was Cymascope was the website that I kind of got a model of how to start playing around with it. So I had a 15-inch subwoofer bass speaker. And then I carved out a piece of wood using rhino kind of, I can't remember what it's called, but those etching out the perfect pattern onto the wood. So the wood was exactly the same shape as the speaker. And then I got a piece of thin plastic vacuum formed the wood so that I had a thin layer of plastic to put on top of my 15-inch subwoofer bass speaker. And then inside the speaker, there's like a cone. So once the water was just covered the cone, that's when I would start. And so I had lots and lots of frequencies, obviously, because I was recording it for so long. So I looked for the most common one that kept popping up. And then I just cut out a tiny frequency within that, brought down the BPM, and started taking pictures with like a sewing light, just like a ring light. So when there was no sound coming out, you could just see a circle of light. And as the speaker started playing the sound and stopping the sound, the pattern would emerge, the smaller section of the sound I clipped out. And yeah, that's kind of what I saw sound reading form. And it's like we only get glimmers of that multidimensional aspect in 3D where, yeah, how sound literally creates a living form.
When I look at old architecture, to me, it just seems so perfect. It seems impossible to create nowadays. Like we couldn't do it for some reason. And when I look at stuff like these old cathedrals, like at Notre Dame and Duomo di Milano, I believe it's called, which is the cathedral in Milan in Italy, I look at those and I go, that looks like it was like sand piled up, and then people harmonizing or singing or some kind of a vibration created that, like stretched it up and made it this beautiful building. Am I way off in thinking that? Is it possible that some of these places were built using sound?
I mean, if you think about the geometric code and how you can put that in architecture, and it's also in sound, to make music sound harmonious, then like these churches that I recorded, some of them were falling to pieces, but there were still orchestras that came there to rehearse. So because of the resonance. So I think, again, going back to that geometric code, the golden ratio that's in everything in nature, when you combine that in architecture and then use sound that's also harmonic to that ratio, it's going to create. I mean, I think that's where they were aspiring to, back in the enlightened periods, to use that to connect further with, who we really are. But for me, my experience of recording in those churches, I mean, a lot of those churches felt very dark to me. But maybe when they were built, it was a different feeling. But
We know that sound can shatter glass. So if that's true, then it must be true that sound can build things as well. And that's the reason I asked that. Um, did the cymatics match the rose windows that were on the front of the cathedrals when you recorded these? They didn't.
similar kind of pattern.
Similar patterns, though. Okay. What do you think of rose windows? I'll just ask you because you're probably more of an expert on it than I am. What is the significance of them? Why would they have such a specific geometric pattern on the front of these buildings?
I'm not sure. When I was making the cymatic patterns, there was a kind of foliage kind of pattern that you see in the plasterwork in the churches that looks like very, very, very similar. So I don't know the answer to that question, but I do think those churches were built on like intersections of ley lines, like where I was living in. So it's like the dark and the light use similar tools, but for different intentions. So probably they might have been pagan sites beforehand, like in Ireland, a lot of pagan sites then were goddesses or became saints. But before they were Christian, they were actually pagan, and those intersections of ley lines had a pagan kind of structure. And then I think Christianity kind of usurped that for their own power. So dark energies can line up at intersections and ley lines and do stuff, and light energy can do that. I don't, I mean, I respect all religions, and I think they're all like, leading to source if it's an experience that they're experiencing. But yeah, I think these churches probably were used to kind of intimidate the local people into like giving them a glimmer of what could be. But yeah, I don't really feel the I didn't feel like there was a light energy in the churches that I went to. I feel like there's a controlling energy in a lot of the churches that I go to. Yes, of course, the harmonies and the acoustics and the beauty that opens our heart, which it's like the dimensions, the sound and the sacred geometry, which opens our heart. But why are they doing that? Are they using that for the good or for other reasons? So I guess it depends.
Personally believe this is my I have nothing to back it up. It's just my feeling, my intuition on it. But I personally believe that when we become sick, it's because our atoms aren't vibrating in harmony together. So I feel like some of these places, some of these what people call sacred places, they would go and get, quote unquote healed at these places. And so for me, whenever I see like rose windows on the front of a cathedral, I take it as like that's an alignment for a specific ailment. Like if you're out of vibration for this or out of harmony for this thing, then you go there for that specific vibration. I'm sure I could be wrong on that, but that's sort of my thought on it. And I'm glad you brought up the ley lines because I agree. I do think that they're ley lines. They all these old churches, maybe they were taken over from the pagans, like you said, but graveyards are built on these places as well. They're built on ley lines. They're the dolmens and the passage mounds and the stone hinges and all that, these stone circles and all that stuff. They were all built there, and then they were used by people like Arthur and Merlin and people like that to convince people that these were these magic healing places, if you will. And I do feel like some people were using that, like you said, good and bad. But I do feel like that they're energetic points where things come into our reality. They can come into our reality. That's why you see a lot of fairies and things like that around these different sites, these glowing orbs, these balls of light, if you will. So I'm just cautious, I guess. I'm just, because I feel like we're here to have a human experience on Earth. It's supposed to be unique. Like, why do we need to access information from anyone, anything, any entity, good or bad? Shouldn't we just be here to have that human experience and to learn? Like, why do we need guides and all this other stuff? So I think that there have been people throughout history who know that this stuff is going on. Like, they can tap into these other realms, if you will, and they can tap into these energies, whether that's good or bad energy. Because electric and magnetic fields are oscillating fields, right? They have it's the male and the female energy. So I think if you do tap into some one or the other, you're going to get good or bad intentions and feelings and things like that. But I think that there have been people throughout history, and I think you're right to some degree with the old cathedrals and stuff. People who want power over people will tell them certain things to make them think that they have this divine appointment from God to heal people or what have you. But I say all that because I feel like a lot of these places, these cathedrals, even like I said, people who look at pyramids, they say they're all burial mounds and all this stuff. I don't think so. I think that they were the same as what modern day churches are. They're just places where people can go to access energies and things like that. Um, I don't want to muddy the waters with my thoughts in this. I mean, obviously, I have you on the show to share your ideas, but I do find it fascinating that you felt called to go and study these things and to record the cymatics. And by the way, all your artwork is amazing. It's beautiful. Your pictures are beautiful. Everything is incredible. And I feel like that there is this underlying geometry with all of us, like you said, that I mean, even your finger, the small bone to your finger, to the next bone, to the next bone, and then your wrist to your elbow, and your elbow to your full arm. That is even a golden ratio, right? So, but again, I think that all that has been hijacked in some way. Like we're out of alignment with ourself. We're out of alignment with source. And I mentioned earlier how, you know, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Like if we're at do, we can resonate with la, right?
Yeah,
But we
yeah,
have to be
yeah.
matched on that energy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that kind of helps me understand like multidimensionality. Like say if you press middle C on the piano, then all the other C's vibrate. So we're kind of have our blinkers on in third dimension because we can't really perceive other dimensions so easily. But when you think about, what we're vibrating in right now in 3D, then you can be sure that other multidimensional energies are also lined up with that energy, So does that make sense? I don't know.
Yeah. I didn't mean to have a word salad of stuff a while ago. I was just saying a bunch of things. But what I was trying to get at is like, I do feel like that there are energetic hotspots that can be manipulated for good and bad reasons. And I think mostly it's been manipulated for bad reasons. And I think that it's up to us, it's up to the individual to recognize their own resonance. And like you said, maybe it's a happy place that you're at one point in your life, and you try to match that love and that energy that you have, and then try to resonate at that next, um, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti. So you're trying to constantly get to that higher form of yourself, if you will. And you're right, you do feel invincible when you start resonating at these higher levels. It's like, it almost feels like surreal sometimes, because it's like, it doesn't really make sense because you're not doing anything special, but yet somehow good things keep happening to you.
Yeah, it's like you have such strong present moment awareness of your pleasure and joy. And it's like being so aware of that and trusting that whatever is coming towards you is like lining up with that. But it's this in the moment, like it's like you're giving your own presence of love to yourself, and then you can trust that. Like we can't control anything outside of us, but we can control the vibration we're offering. And then once we are feeling lined up with that, then it's like alignment, then take action, alignment, then make the difficult phone call, you know?
Oh, I 100% agree. In fact, now I felt like before I left my last job, I felt like there was a presence that's kind of holding me back. And then when I quit my job, I said, I got to do something for myself. I am better than that. I can do better than, $20 an hour. I can do better than whatever the case was. And then once I let go and I just let God take over, and just literally let God work through me in ways, I just started listening, and everything just started opening up. And then I just started just kind of going wherever he leads me. And I never know where I'm going next. The conversation we're having now is kind of honestly, I don't really plan things out months in advance. Typically, it's usually like, hey, you want to come on the show today or tomorrow or next week or whatever? And then I just make it happen. And that's how I live my life as well. I don't worry about where money's going to come from tomorrow. And this just happened to me. And this has happened to me many times. Every time I get almost no money in my account, literally $50, $20, I've been down to 50 cents before. And I just have this unmatchable, like, it's going to be okay. I don't care. Whatever happens, happens. And it just happened to me yesterday. I live for others, like I coach baseball, and I'm always giving people the shirt off my back if I have to. I mean, I'm giving them my last dollar if I have to, whatever the case is. And I'm not suggesting that everybody goes out and does that. I'm suggesting that you live for God and let God put you in the places that he needs you, and then good things will come to you. Because I made the decision to kind of go, okay, I'm going to go full force with this show rather than build websites and all this other stuff. I'll still build websites and take photos. But when you do something like that, when you jump off the cliff, you just got to hope that parachute's going to open. that's what started to happen. Is like every time I just jump and hope the parachute's going to open and trust that the parachute's going to open, then good things happen. I mean, I was down to like almost no money here recently. And then my wife came to me yesterday and she's like, this happened. And now we have thousands more. And I'm like, holy crap, it's amazing. It's like, it's always like that when we were building our house. My wife kept saying, we're not going to be able to afford it. And I was like, we will. Well, truthfully, we didn't really have the money to build a house, but it was cheaper than buying a house that was already built. So I was like, we're going to make it happen no matter what. And I had this unwavering feeling that everything was going to be okay. And when we built the house, we got all the construction loans and everything out. And just before we closed, the bank said, you owe us one more payment of $1,200.54, right? And I was like, oh, what are we going to do? You know, I was kind of like nervous. And I just so happened to start selling baseball cards like a few months before that. And I bought a baseball card of a guy who happened to get really popular. And so his card was really cheap when I bought it. But then whenever I sold it for $1,600, right? eBay took their cut of it, taxes and all this other stuff. And I ended up with the exact amount I needed to the penny to pay that mortgage. And it was because I think that, aligning with source, like I was lining up with source and I was letting God just take control rather than, worry about, I think worry and fear and anxiety holds us back in that vibration. It holds us back in that negative vibration, that slow vibration, right? And you can see that with geometric patterns. Typically, the low vibration will create this kind of a dull geometry, right? And then this high vibration will create this beautiful, almost like flower of life looking, intricate geometric shape. And that's what that geometric shape, that beautiful shape, the most beautiful shape is love and authenticity and light. And that's God and that's love and that's Jesus, right? And for me, it's Jesus. And so when you resonate in that frequency, these things will happen just out of the blue. You will get blessed with things out of the blue. I've talked about this with a friend of mine named Paul. I believe he's from the UK as well. He was telling me how he did the same thing, writing a book. He let go and just let God. And then all of a sudden, he didn't have money to pay for his car breaking down or something like that. And then all of a sudden somebody donated $600 to him and he had enough money to fix it. It was just enough money to fix his car. And I've heard countless stories like that. And for me, it's always the same idea behind it. When you just let go of your fear and anxiety and all this stuff, then good things will start happening to you. Is that the kind of stuff you teach, by the way, with your?
That's exactly what that's what I guide, the journey I guide people through in my program. So I make an invocation for my work that I attract people who are ready to work with the higher council of light and lining up with their highest divine good to work through me with them. And so my program's called Awaken Your Light Within. And it's just learning to have psychic protection tools so you feel invincible, and then learning to tune your frequency to your own upliftment, to your own true essence. And like sometimes I even like set an alarm for like 5 minutes and I just like sit in this frequency. And the more my clients are doing it, the more they're kind of waking up in that feeling. And it's like taking that leap of faith, as you say, because it's like being in the knowing that you are an extension of source energy. And when you act on that bravely, it always lines up. And just clearing any kind of blocks on their timeline that's holding them back from expressing their true essence. I think the essence is all the same, really. It's just if people are having their own experience of spirituality, I have friends who are all religions and we have the same kind of chats. It doesn't matter how you access it, but once you have your own like spiritual connection and you're receptive to connecting with God or source, then the signs start popping up. because you're open to it.
Where did the idea of light work practice originate from? Was it from like mystery schools?
So basically, Ariadne started Palladian light work. She channeled it in the 90s. So it would have come from ancient mystery schools from Lemuria, ancient Egypt, Atlantis. And so this healing modality was designed for helping people ascend rapidly and clear karma that no longer serves them, that they've been carrying around for thousands of years, and it's just like ready to lift, but they're still carrying it around, clearing beliefs and behaviors. So basically, that's where it originated from. And yeah, like I've had past lives where I've definitely practiced this modality before, or even had lifetimes where all the stuff that I did with the church project and the Cymatics, it's like being on a council, and I had a kind of crystal over my third eye, and I would look into portals for information. And then it was to do with alchemy and vibration and metals, and like remembering that lifetime kind of, and then knowing my artwork now, or remembering those times in past lives when I um also practice this kind of form of light work. It's like a remembrance, and like what I was kind of meant to do here.
Okay, one final question and we'll go ahead and wrap this up. Do you think that we are in a great awakening right now? Are we heading towards some newer version of Earth or new version of ourselves?
Yeah, definitely. And I think we're shedding lots, like astrologically at the moment, with all these solar eclipses, and with this eclipse portal. And a lot of people are coming to me because they've been hiding in the gutters, and they've been knowing who they really are. And they're like ready to come forward. And so many people, all the people coming to me in my program, are ready to come out of hiding and actually shine brightly, because for whatever reason, when they were born, or or they were brought up, they had to dim their light just to survive or get their basic needs met. And now it's like, and then clearing the witch wound of like being seen and expressing our light. And so many people are coming to me now to assist them in like clearing what's blocking them from expressing their true light. So I feel like it's inevitable. And yeah, it's a very exciting time to be alive.
I definitely agree. I feel like, well, this goes back to the Bible again. This goes back to new earth. Like we are sort of vibrating into this new version. We're kind of leaving this old, this old negative energy behind. And I personally think that we're heading towards what I call the age of authenticity, where it's going to be harder and harder for people to deceive people. Like you can see it now with news and media and all this other stuff. I think authenticity will resonate at a much higher frequency than what's been. Then you mentioned somebody dimming your light, right? I do think that was happening, and I personally believe it's been deliberate by whatever evil energy has ruled this world for the last couple thousand years, for the last 1,000 years, maybe the last couple hundred years. I don't know. And I think that we're kind of shedding that. We're shedding that old skin, and we're heading toward a newer version of ourselves. It's almost like that Tool song 46 and 2, I believe is the name of the song, where it's like you're kind of metamorphosizing into a newer version, like a caterpillar almost, turning into a butterfly. And I think that, like I said, it's going to be a lot more love. I think there's going to be growing pains, obviously. Like as we do this split, there's going to be a lot of people fighting against us. There's going to be a lot of spiritual warfare. And I think those who are working with the darkness will be left behind. And I think those who are positive and share ideas of love and harmony and all this other stuff will move forward into maybe a new dimension. I don't know what you would call new earth. Like that's from a biblical lens. That's what they say, new earth. I don't know what you would call that, because I'm not really clear on that, because I don't know. I don't know the future. I don't know. I can only intuitively say how I feel and what's happening, because I have said it before on this show too, that this show resonates with people and I don't know why. The only thing I can think is that I'm saying something that is true or authentic, or, maybe everybody's feeling too that they don't want to say, but they have their own ideas and they don't want to question this, that, or the other about certain things, about certain religions. Like, why are we praying to statues again? Why are we doing this? And all these other different things, all these other rites and rituals, why we have to blow smoke around the room, all these other different things that you were kind of taught. I think that we can look inward and access that light anytime. We don't have to go through some sort of an authority. We don't have to go through some sort of a guy with a robe on, or a guy with a suit, and a suit and tie. We can access that divinity anytime we look in and anytime we pray. But I think that there are people who have corrupted that. And I think that there are people who have started to realize that. And I think 2020 was probably a big thing that woke a lot of people up, that said, okay, something strange is going on here. Let me start, emerging as how I really feel. And because it was a sort of a dark cloud on the world. And I've mentioned it, how I think hindsight 2020, when, we've always heard the word hindsight 2020, maybe 2020 was the moment that split started to happen, and hindsight is 2020. We're leaving that old negative world behind. But I think what we're seeing right now with political assassinations and all this other stuff, that there are people who help run the darkness in this world, who are kicking and screaming. They're the global elites, and they're not going to go down without a fight, pretty much. They're going to, and I think that's what we're kind of seeing, unfortunately, with wars and with violence and all this other stuff. I just don't think they're going to win, though. I think the light will win. I think good will win. It will defeat the darkness, and we will just emerge into a new place where everybody's living in harmony with each other and loving each other. And it's hard to see that right now. It's hard to find people who are doing that. But I think that as long as there's good people out there saying these things and putting those frequencies out there and creating that energy, then I think positive things will happen. But I think we have to learn how to tune the media out, and we have to remember that we have a lot of power. We have a lot of creative power with our thoughts and our words and how we, and our intentions, like you mentioned, because that intention is the amplifier for that frequency. It is what pushes that forward. It is what helps mold that reality that we want to create. And I think if everybody was to say things more often, like love is coming rather than the end of the world is coming, then love will come. Right. So I think that there's been a grip on the people of the world through the media to get us to create a reality for them rather than the reality that we want. Everybody wants love. Everybody wants peace. Nobody wants wars in the Middle East. Nobody wants wars in Russia and Ukraine. I think everybody collectively, the collective consciousness wants better, but we never get better. We never get that. And we're constantly fed a narrative to divide each other rather than unite us. Because anytime anybody has ever said something about uniting under love, they've been assassinated, right? You got Martin Luther King Jr. and John F. Kennedy and John Lennon, and everybody who's talked about love has been assassinated. And so I think that we have to keep pushing that. They can't stop the collective consciousness from creating the world that we want to create. We just have to be the ones who put that positive message out there so everybody can latch onto that vibration rather than latching onto the negative vibration of fear and anxiety and divide and all this other stuff. I know that the world is not like what they show on TV because I live it every day. I go to gas stations, I go to grocery stores, I go to restaurants, I interact with people every day. People aren't racist. People aren't crazy as they say they are. Everybody's pretty calm and helpful and holding the doors for people and saying thank you and please. It's not like what they're telling us it is. And so I just think that we have to be a positive voice to create positive change in the world. And I think that's the point of this show. And I kind of got long-winded there, but that's why I'm having people like you on who are talking about a message of light. It's a definitely a different message than how I would normally present it, but it's sounds pretty similar. Light, love, energy. Let's go. Let's go in that direction. I don't care about all the negative stuff. So
Yeah, I think there'll always be light and dark, but it's like getting out of the polarity of it and into like unity and diversity and not being so scared of the dark, because everyone thinks the darkness is more powerful than the light. But when I don't feel like, going to protests was for Gaza and stuff. For me, that doesn't feel like I'm offering anything. It feels like I'm creating more anxiety and stress for myself. So I can't really offer much to the collective. But if I'm focused, for me, this is how I deal with it, is like I can only control my light within, and and not be scared of the dark or the light, and be sovereign in my own expression as a light being. And however high I raise my consciousness, then that's what I'm offering to the collective. But I think I feel like there is a infectious kind of ripple of awakening to our sovereignty and our choice and how we vibrate, because I think the global elite are, in this fourth dimensional kind of astral war. It's like there's non-physical energies that siphon off our fear and chaos. Millions of people are watching the news, then they're banking on that, or even films or TV. They're banking on the emotions that we're releasing. So these entities are feeding off that fear and chaos. And, little setup events of whatever, publicly, politically, create this big, oh my God, because they're trying to get us to feel like we're not in a safe world. But even I know that if our car doesn't start, somebody's going to come along and help us, you know, somebody's going to give us a jump. But it's our frequency. We can take responsibility of that. And then we're offering the new earth. We're recreating the new earth, where there's so many probable timelines available to all of us. But like, where are we? We can only control where we're going by how we're vibrating within. Yeah. And there's no need to judge other people like that are in darkness, because we've all gone through the darkness ourselves. We've had dark lives. Everybody has. And so we can say, oh, that person is um, less evolved than us or darker than us. Well, probably more than likely we were where they were at some point. And the only difference between them and us is time. So we become what we judge. So I think this polarity thing is like this judgment kind of, yeah, just if everyone's constantly judging outside, like we should just be focusing inside and what we can offer, because everybody's learning and evolving in their perfect way, even the dark, because they're exactly where they need to be right now in their learning and growing. And so it's like releasing the judgment, which creates the neutrality and ability to be in unity and diversity, or offer that vibration, which stops the dark and the light and the dark. We all have dark and lightness in us.
yeah, and you could do that very easily too, by the way, for anyone who cares to try it. Just try to be positive, try to be more positive. I am not always positive, I promise you. But whenever I do try to push positivity, there's always better outcomes for me. Anytime I'm negative or in a negative headspace, negative things definitely start happening. So anyhow, I think the idea is to, like, we're all in the same book. We're just on different pages, you know? But we'll all get there eventually. We're not better than anybody else. We're not trying to be better than anybody else by saying things like this. It's just that we have realized that we have taken our power back from these entities. these egregores, these negative energies, whatever you want to call them, they have sucked the life out of us, and they will continue to siphon our energy if we don't take our sovereignty back, if we don't take our free will back. You can have the most freedom just by having the peace of mind and taking back your authority over the powers that be. Even as they get their boot on your neck, just try to have that frame of mind, that presence of understanding that they can't take your light from you. No matter what they do, like you said, the darkness is not more powerful than the light, by no means. So, but again, that's not to say that, again, I know you're not perfect. I know I'm not perfect. We still have our moments where we cuss at traffic and where we, why'd you cut me in line or whatever the case is. But I think that everything that happens to us because we're supposed to learn something. Like if someone cut you off in line, I had a woman going really slow in front of me and it was driving me crazy when I was driving the other day. And all I could think was like, get out of my way, lady. But then eventually I realized like maybe God was slowing me down. Maybe he was preventing me from getting into a car accident. Maybe he was trying to help me see something in the woods. Maybe I was supposed to see a tree or something, or some flower or something to just slow my life down. But I think that everything has its purpose, and we are here to learn.
Whatever we're attracting into our reality is exactly perfect because it's obviously a match to what's going on inside of us. So that's when we get to actually deliberately place ourselves in vibration as opposed to being in our frequency saturated society. It's like, oh, we can actually choose what frequency we want to admit. And I think that's the key. And that's what they're banking on us not realizing.
Tanya, you've been a great guest. I really appreciate you answering all my questions and being patient with me while I babble on and on about everything. Do you have anything that you would like to plug or promote before we get out of here?
Yeah, just anyone listening and feels a resonance with what we've been talking about. Please reach out to me on my website, and let's do a discovery call and see if we're a match for my program, because spirits called me to offer this because I know I can help people step into their true essence. So it would be an honor.
Thank you for your work on the architecture of sound. Like I said, it was a pivotal piece of information for helping me in my awakening. So thank you very much for doing that. And thank you to Topher Gardner for connecting us together so we can have this conversation. I was really excited to have this conversation because I admire what you did, especially with the Cymatics stuff. So thank you for coming on here and enlightening us with everything you've done and everything you're doing. I really appreciate you. Thank you very much.
Me in the right direction. God send me your blessing. I'm so tired of stressing. This music's turned to obsession. I got a long way to go to ease my pain. My clothes soaking wet, makes me sweat and the rain. Going half insane. Wishing I could change all my mistakes, but y'all be half gone if all y'all had seen the things that I saw. Hallucinating from the alcohol, hoping I can stop my own fall. Gotta stand tall, overcome the sin. Walking down the dirt road, singing church hymns. Oh dear Lord. Well, I'm standing at the crossroads. I don't know where to go. I'm losing control. Trying not to steal my soul. I'm standing at the crossroads. I don't know where to go. I'm losing thinking about the memories. Now I don't know who's a friend to me. These people act like they can to me. Well, that's still a mystery. A mystery. Devil wants me to lose my religion, but I won't stop, not without a fight. I won't give it, won't give it. So I'm gonna sit down